Greetings, and welcome back to the Norman Lowell interviews. This is our third episode, covering Imperium and Dominium. I am your host, Julian. I am joined by Norman Lowell. Thank you for joining me, Norman.
Always a pleasure, Julian.
Thank you, yes. Today's podcast is on Imperium and Dominium. Now, a lot of people wonder what exactly Imperium is and what Dominium is. So, my first question to you today is, how do you distinguish the Imperium from the Dominium?
Good question. Well, basically, Imperium is masculine, Dominium is feminine. One finds this duality throughout the universe, wherever one looks. Imperium is embracing, expanding, extending, penetrating. It is the realm of the elite, the guardians of the Imperium, veritable Superman. Dominium, the feminine side. With our women lies the very future of our race. Let us remember that Mother Goddess is the divinity of fertility, that the Tao refers repeatedly to the Valley Spirit, that is feminine, and that the very word Tao is female. In Chinese, the Tao paragraph, and I quote, "The Tao is forever undefined. It has no beginning and no end," is throughout in the female sense. Thus, by implication, the very universe is feminine. However, the female is superficial, fickle, the frenzy of feminine fads, fetishes, and fashions fascinating the white man.
Thank you. On the topic of the Imperium, who can be part of the Imperium?
As we said, the Imperium side is the realm of the elite, an elite of Superman. Genetically, these gods exist. Somewhere they must be. We have to will them, find them, create them. They must live again. A fusion between spirituality and high politics. The two will converge and become one. Within our Imperium Europa, the elite of Superman will elevate high politics to art, to spirituality. The three will become one, a trinity of the divine. An elite order, at the top of which stands a Rex, beholder of an idea, embodying that mysterious, indefinable, charismatic, spiritual authority bestowed from above. We must breed a new religious caste, all male, imbued with a sacred high dominance, quite apart, distinct, distanced from the nation. The elite is not and should never be a representation of society. It is above it, auctoritas. The members of this elite will be experts in cosmology, the arcane tradition, genetics, genetic engineering, anthropology, eugenics, and medicine. They will forge a new science of the spirit. A religious elite forging an esoteric, healthy, nature-oriented new belief that befits the white race. A primordial substratum, pre-Christian pagan wisdom for that elite attuned to it. Conscious through personal experience, a direct perception of transcendent realities, of eternal truths that express the essence of the universe. This elite, living Zarathustras.
Thank you. Throughout your speeches, I've heard you mention Novoropa. Can you explain the concept behind it, please?
Good. The emergence of a new Europe, a Nova Europa, a Europe of regions and peoples, a Novoropa, a European vision as against the petty village pump politics prevalent in today's Brussels. This is a stepping stone, the first step on the quest for the Imperium idea. We have to prepare whites slowly to begin to understand the concept of Imperium Europa. Nova Europa is the palliative, the path. An Imperium reserved solely for the Europid and nobody else. 2 white rings will encircle the globe, north and south of the equator. To the north, the Imperium will stretch from Ireland to Vladivostok. Across the Bering Strait, it will join a Nova America, or Vinland, as the Vikings used to call it, comprising Alaska, Canada, and the redimensioned white USA. In the south, the white man will be the undisputed lord over white Africa, south of the Congo River and the Great Lakes. Australia and New Zealand will become a white continent reserved solely for the Europid. The sub-Amazonian white cone, as well as the Panama Isthmus and its adjacent territories, will be the white man's sole preserve. Thus, the Europid will control the food-growing areas of the planet. This is our ultimate weapon, the white man's ability to grow a food surplus. No other race is capable of this. The Imperium will trade food for all it needs from the rest of humanity. We will barter enough food to keep them from starving, nothing else. Latin will be our common tongue, and capitalism our economic ethos. Capitalism and racism are not inimical. The former is our creation. We will uphold it among ourselves only. We will not trade or transfer our technology, the fruit of the white man's genius, outside the Imperium. Indeed, we will have a free market throughout the Imperium, with fair, straight competition between productive Europids. Every region will find its niche of productivity, its optimum produce. Productive man will again assume the economic high ground as against the speculative financier. We will go back to basics. We will again adopt the gold standard, this time on a planetary basis. All euro issuance will have to be backed by gold, mined from within the confines of the Imperium, or bartered for food from without. All white South Africa mines and the Urals are more than enough to keep pace with the volume of currency in circulation. The price of gold will automatically and directly relate to the gold reserves and the currency. Inflation would finally cease to plague the European man. We will reduce our Imperium Europa income tax to a 10% flat rate for everybody, without distinction as to his wealth. No tax should be more than this, for our so-called progressive taxation penalizes the rising entrepreneur. Capital accumulation is impossible for him. Meanwhile, the established rich are already there. They do not need to accumulate new capital. What they need is shelter by the tax collector from competition. The established rich in our present system are the staunchest advocates of progressive taxation for others. Tax collection will be used to operate the Imperium, the army, the police, and the regional government. It is for these purposes and for very little else that the Imperium will collect the 10% tax from all. For when a growing percentage of tax collected is used not to operate the government, but for the express purpose of redistribution of wealth, then that is a flat rejection of the concept of freedom and private property. We will reduce government to a minimum in the Dominium sphere. The regions are free to impose any tax they want, adopt any form of economics they choose. Socialism as a frame of mind will be finally extirpated. There will be no welfare in the future Imperium, no social benefits, no minimum wage, and no children allowance. Nothing, but nothing will be free, except the minds of man. Instead, there will be a steady reduction of working hours in preference to wage increases, an ever increase in technology to compensate production, and most important of all, an investment in lifetime education of European workers, turning them from mere productive citizens to persons. We will finally achieve that most ambitious of all goals, the reversal of productive man, Homo economicus, into the complete man, the Superman. Yes, capitalism in a racial context within an Imperium Europa, a Europe not of merchants and bankers and bureaucrats, but an Imperium Europa of high planetary politics and peoples, all the different regions and peoples of the white world. Then we can turn our full attention to harnessing nature and conquering space. We will carry the Imperium to the furthest reaches we can strive for.
Thank you, Norman. So, from what you've just explained, Imperium Europa is an idea, the idea as you would call it, that doesn't seek to build on the current EU framework. How can you ensure Europeans and Maltese a swift transition from EU to Novoropa to Imperium Europa?
Exactly. Those oafs in Brussels are doing the donkey work for us. Everything is in place in order to switch this Jewish-dominated mercantile EU into a Nova Europa, eventually Imperium Europa. We only have to infuse the 5 R's, and the transformation will take place. Spirituality, race, high culture, high politics, territory, but the most important is spirituality. Enough of this 2,000-year-old disease of the mind, the Jesus poison, an abject religion, anti-nature and anti-life. Everything, anything that is healthy, life-giving and joyful is a sin when viewed from the Jesus standpoint. Jesus, that Charles Manson of the white race.
Will the Imperium intervene if the politics of the Dominia fail, possibly bringing chaos and disorder?
No. The Imperium will let the free play of forces within the regions, the autonomous regions, so long as none of the 5 R's is touched. In that case, the elite would intervene and stamp out mercilessly any such attempts. We will not allow the wine to overflow from the goblet.
Are the current EU concepts and rights of freedom of movement of persons and services acceptable within an Imperium?
Europeans in our Imperium will be free to travel anywhere. However, regions may bar certain other regions from entry, with the inevitable consequence of a tit-for-tat. Inevitably, over time, with a pan-European consciousness sinking in, such petty rivalries will disappear. We will overcome the pettiness and the peak of the nation-states.
Thank you. Continuing on the note of the EU's framework, Will the Imperium be subject to EU human rights courts decisions? If not, are there alternatives which you consider?
Let me be clear. We of Imperium Europa do not believe in human rights. They are a Jewish invention in order to shackle Europeans through the lie of equality. We believe in individual rights, the right of any individual, even the most humble, to live his own life and seek his own happiness, without interference from the state, the churches, or whoever. This, so long as the individual does not impinge on the individual rights of others. And by extension, we stand for the right of every race to live according to its wishes, its culture, pursuing its destiny. We do not want to interfere in the affairs of others. Hence our vision of an Imperium uniting the four cousin sub-races, Anglo-Saxons, Teutons, Slavs, and Latins. We will not tolerate others to interfere in our own racial affairs. We will go our own way and bid the rest do the same, to each their own. Only then, with the grand separation of the races, can this planet have that peace that we all, whites and non-whites alike, have always yearned for.
Thank you. Those who would have followed your speeches and read your material would have noticed that you've described the idea of Imperium Europa as a unifying idea. Right-wingers would find it a vital aspect of it due to the fact that in comparison with the left, the right is always fragmented. Why are you so confident that right-wing groupings find Imperium Europa as a unifying idea?
Yes, the right wing has a history of fragmentation, squabbles over minor ideological issues of no great consequence. It has always been like that. Even the Pact of Steel between Italy and Germany in 1939 was driven by jealousy and pique. And a year later, the Tripartite Act, Japan, Germany, and Italy, was not an organic alliance, but a cobbled arrangement of so-called common interest. In effect, each of the three parties moved in its own interest, without even informing the other two of its intentions. As Count Ciano noted in his diary after a meeting with Ribbentrop, se ne fottono altamente della nostra situazione. Now, in the 21st century, we cannot afford the luxury of divisions. The white race, this tiny minority, this biological aristocracy, is besieged, beleaguered, beaten into a corner. We have to stick together, or our enemies will destroy us in salami fashion. As the British and the Boers have finally found out, they are in it together and must fight it out as whites. Only a unifying idea, Imperium Europa, can bind together the white race. Why? Because there is nothing else. Only innumerable petty nationalists digging their little furrow with no greater vision. Imperium Europa is a supranationalism, a pan-Europeanism on a planetary scale, uniting all whites. Only this idea remains. There is nothing else. And in Malta, only we can offer hope for the survival of our people. If we weren't here as a political movement, there would be nothing except mediocrity and certain perdition of our country and our people. We of Imperium Europa are the only hope. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you, Norman. And that wraps up our third podcast on the Imperium and the Dominium. Before signing off, a message to those who are interested in our movement and are interested in helping us out. If you wish to, please contact info@imperium-europa.org on email. I was your host, Julian, covering the third episode of the Norman Lowell interviews. We wish to have you back next time. Thank you.